Hello guys and welcome back to our countdown to Christmas. Today is the 23rd of December. It's nice and early this morning. I've got to get an early start in because I've got a lot of catching up to do. Now yesterday we were talking about the Technomancer going up against the Chronomancer, so check that out in the playlist if you missed that one, quite an interesting one. But for today we've got an experimental one with the 3 Plasmancers going up against the Transcendent Catan Shard. Now they separate them in terms of points to begin, so the Plasmancers, 3 of them are costing us 195 points plus. Now I say plus because there's Crytek Arkana available to all 3 of these Plasmancers. We're going to throw on some extra points. In fact, they may end up being more expensive than the Transcendent Catan Shard. Then the Transcendent Catan Shard is 230 points, so starting off at 35 points more. But yeah, once the Crytek Arkana has been added on, they're not far apart. Now all of these are character models. The Plasmancers are Crytek character infantry models, and the Catan Shard is an elite monster. And bear in mind that all of these units can fly. Right, as for the stats, to break them up to begin with, first of all, the movement of the Catan Shard is 8 inches, whereas the Plasmancers are only 5. They're hitting on a 2+, not a 3+, because web skill and ballistic skill is a 2. The strength of the Catan Shard is 6, the toughness is 7. They've even got more attacks, so even when you combine the Plasmancers' attacks with each other, they still only come up to 3 attacks, whereas the Catan Shard actually has 5. It's also got a bigger base as well, so it's going to interact with the buffs much easier with the range. The only thing that the Plasmancers have better than the Catan Shard is the amount of wounds. When you combine them, they've got a combined total of 12 wounds as opposed to the Catan Shard's 9. But that one I think is a very straightforward win to the Catan Shard. Right, so onto the ability, starting off with the 3 Plasmancers. And firstly, the command protocols. A lot of people seem to forget that the Catan Shards do not gain command protocols. So you cannot be using the protocol of Undying Legions to get double living metal come back on your Catan Shard. You can't get 2 wounds back because they don't have command protocols. So that's the first one. The second one is of course the relic options, the warlord traits as well as the Crytek Arkana. All of those are available to the Plasmancers, but not the Catan Shards. They've also got their unique abilities within the datasheet, so you've got Living Lightning, so on a 4+ units within 6 inches is going to take a mortal wound. So it could be multiple units, it could be 1 unit, so it's kind of hard to judge how many you can do, but you do need to be quite close to the enemy unit in order to do that one. The second one is the Harbinger of Destruction ability, so this is 3d6, you roll a 4+, this is for the closest enemy model within 24 inches, and they're going to be suffering a mortal wound on any 4+ roll. So you don't need to be as close as the other one with the Living Lightning ability, but yeah, that one now is the closest eligible model, so you're still quite restricted in terms of which unit's going to take the mortal wounds. You're likely to get 1 or 2 off with that ability. Also wanted to throw in the unique Arcana here because this is the Plasmancers video after all, and the unique Arcana is the Quantum Orb, and you're basically throwing out mortal wounds for a bomb. You're throwing a bomb in a certain location on the battlefield, and your opponent has got a turn to basically get away from that bomb before it explodes, throwing out mortal wounds. So you can use this not only just to try to throw out mortal wounds, but also to try to make your opponent move units away from a location. Maybe there's an objective, maybe it's just a key area, maybe you're trying to defend your own units so you don't want their units coming in. You can also trap units that are in combat that don't want to fall back with this bomb. I don't think it's the most competitive Crytek Arkana we've got, but it is quite a fun one. Okay, so that's the 3 Plasmancers. What about the Transcendent Catan Shard? First of all, the Necrodermis ability. So only loses 3 wounds in a given phase, and also has that 4+ invulnerable save, so very good for resiliency. He's got the Fractured Personality ability. You get 2 random powers, or you can get to select one from the table of 6. Most of them are pretty usable for me, and yeah, you get to customise your Catan Shard, which I think is pretty cool. And the third one is the powers of the Catan Shard, of course. This model is going to know 2 Catan Shard powers. Again, you're going to select them from the table. Most of them are usable, there's a couple that are a bit rubbish. And yeah, Sky of Falling Stars is probably the one that most people go for, or the Antimatter Meteor is another decent option. For me with the abilities, I mean, the Necrodermis ability alone is really key, but also the Catan Shard powers are more flexible to your opponent who you're going up against, and you've even got the option of changing them with one of the stratagems to customise it towards your opponent's faction. If you're going up against orcs with large units, you may want to change it up to a different power, whereas if you're going up against a more elite faction, like we already said, Antimatter Meteor, Sky of Falling Stars, maybe they'll be much better for that faction. So for this one, I'm going to again go with the Catan Shard here. Now I did actually mention that the 3 Plasmancers are slightly cheaper. They were I think 35 points cheaper compared to the Transcendent Catan Shard, and they've all got the option of taking Crytek Arkana. So what we could do in this example is we could get the Quantum Orb, we can get the Tesla Weave, and maybe we can get the Dimensional Sanctum and put one of those on each of these 3 Plasmancers, and that will actually in fact add up to 40 points. So these are 5 points more expensive than the Catan Shard. All three of them are pretty decent. I mean, you've got the Dimensional Translocation ability on one of them with the Dimensional Sanctum. The Tesla Weave, I believe, is the one where when your opponent makes a charge move within 6 inches of your Plasmancer, on a 2+, they're going to be suffering D3 mortal wounds, so more mortal wounds going out there. And the Quantum Orb we already explained earlier in the video. So yeah, that's the way to make them more balanced in terms of points and getting a little bit extra mortal wounds out at the same time. Okay, next we come on to the segment called Other Damage Output. So of course, there's some weapons to talk about. First of all, we're going to start with the 3 Plasmancers, and they've got the Plasmic Lances. So these are range 18, assault D3, strength 7, -3 AP and 2 damage. So yeah, not too bad to be honest with you. I know it's only D3 shots, but you have got 3 of them, so you do have the potential of 9 shots at strength 7. -3 AP is pretty decent, and 2 damage at Space Marine Killers, isn't it? So not too bad in terms of damage output, especially coming from a character model. They don't normally have the good range attacks, do they? They're normally good in melee. As for the melee side of the weapon, I wouldn't bother too much. It's strength 4, -3 AP, 2 damage, but you've only got 1 attack per Plasmancer. Not where you want to be with the Plasmancer, not in combat at all. Now, the Transcendent Catan Shards, they've got the Crackling Tendrils, strength user, so they are strength 6, -4 AP and D6 damage. So slightly unreliable with the D6, you don't know what you're going to get, but yeah, still pretty decent. 5 attacks. You've got the options with the stratagem, such as the Entropic Strike stratagem, to ignore inbound saves in melee. So for other damage output, again, I'm going to have to go with the Catan Shard here. Okay, so let's get on to the advantages and disadvantages, starting off with the Plasmancers. You've got 3 of them, of course, so what are the advantages of having 3 Plasmancers? First of all, 3 separate models, of course. You're in 3 separate locations, so your opponent has to target 3 different areas, and you're throwing out mortal wounds all over the board, basically. You've got a combined total of 12 wounds, as opposed to the Catan Shard's 9. You've got range attacks with the 3 Lances. Of course, the Catan Shards don't have any range attacks whatsoever, apart from the powers, but that's the movement phase. You've got the option of the Crytek Arkana, the Relics, the Wall of Traits, and also the Cult of the Cryptek, which we actually haven't mentioned in this video. These guys are obviously eligible to be chosen in Cult of the Cryptek because they've got the Cryptek keyword. Disadvantages for the 3 Plasmancers, so there's no invulnerable save, unfortunately. They're inferior in pretty much all the stats apart from the amount of wounds they have, but even then that's when they're combined. Individually they've only got 4 wounds. They need to be close to throw out mortal wounds, especially with the Living Lightning ability with the 6 inches, as well as one of those Crytek Arkanas, the Tesla Weave, that's another 6 inches. So yeah, you've got to be fairly close, and it's not where they want to be, because once you get too close, you're likely going to get into a fight, and that's not where they want to be at all. And finally, they're offering nothing in melee, which we kind of just alluded to. Transcendent Catan Shard advantages, superior stat line pretty much in all the stats. They've got the 4+ invulnerable save, which is pretty good. They're very good in melee, they're only losing 3 wounds in a given phase. You've got the custom fractured personalities ability to make this guy really flexible to what you want him to be. And finally, is a very good distraction unit. Your opponent is not going to like the fact there's a Catan Shard on the table, they're going to gun for it. Disadvantages, well, it's more expensive until you get the Cryptek Arkana on, but at base cost it is more expensive. Less overall wounds with just 9. Offers nothing in the shooting phase. Yep, no weapons there. Cannot take relics and wall of traits because even though it's a character, you can't take any of that stuff. You can't be using the Lookout Sir ability either. That's unfortunate. He's got a weakness to factions that use all of the phases. Maybe you're looking at the Tyranid faction, maybe the Eldari faction. Factions that use all the phases, so you're going to be losing 3 wounds every single phase. You can literally lose Catan Shard in one single turn. There's only 1 model compared to 3. And finally, he will be considered a character model with a character keyword, although he doesn't gain all the character buffs. But what that means is if your opponent selects Assassination for their secondary objectives and they kill your Catan Shard, that's going to give them some points. Okay, we get onto the part of the video where I've got to make a selection here. I thought this one was going to be a bit more tricky to do, but after doing the video, I don't think it is. The Plasmancers are fun, don't get me wrong. You can throw out a lot of mortal wounds, have a lot of fun with them. You've got to get really close to be throwing out mortal wounds with some or even most of their abilities. They've got no inbound save, they're not doing much in the fight phase. Whereas the Catan Shard, he's doing quite a bit in most of the phases, he's quite resilient. So I think for today's video, I'm going to be selecting the Transcendent Catan Shard. So guys, that's the experiment done today. Let me know down in the comments below which one of these 2 sides of the argument you would be selecting. Don't forget to like the video as well and be subscribed. And when you do comment, you'll be entered into a giveaway for this command box set. Other than that, all that's left to say is thank you all for watching, and I'll see you on Christmas Eve.